Hey everyone, it's Laura Myers for CMS-Connected here at ProgressNEXT 2018, and I'm joined by Mark Troester, the VP of Strategy at Progress. Thanks for joining us.
That's great to be here, Laura.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you and kind of get your perspective. So we'll start with how you see the CMS world and app dev coming together.
You know, that's a really good question, and it's really what's driving our cognitive first approach. And we're a big believer that instead of companies thinking about, I'm either going to do a project from a CMS perspective or I'm going to do it from an app dev perspective, that they need to think beyond that. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I talked about this, but it's really a need to provide a better cross-platform experience so that the user or customer can choose the device of their choice or the channel of their choice. Mm-hmm. And we're not seeing just the website that needs to have content, we're seeing rich applications that need to have content. And that content needs to be managed, personalized, and provided in the right context to the user.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, fantastic. And one of the common conversations we have, and I'm really interested to ask you, is people have been collecting data for so long. And now we're finally getting to a place where things are maturing and they can find out what they can do with it. Yeah. So what do you think, how should businesses approach all the data that they have?
You know, that's a good question too, and especially in this day and age where we need to use that data to define the right context, to, in some cases, use data to determine if a user who's anonymous, what persona they fit into. Mm-hmm. So I guess my advice is that many times what we see is people come in, they develop an application, they develop a digital experience, and they're so focused on getting that done that they don't think about optimizing it later. Mm-hmm. And then once they have it out there, it's working, they want to improve it, they start using data, but they didn't collect the data in the right way, or they didn't think about the personas or the job descriptions or the people that are actually using the product, and then they're stuck. And so it's really paramount, I think, for them to think, not to complicate it, but to think about what the personas are, think about the segmentation, think about how the user experience is going to be driven throughout the entire journey, and factor that into the planning before they actually do the development.
Yeah.
And then I think the data, that will help because they will have a better understanding of how to use the data, and all this data that's being piled up can be used more effectively.
And kind of going back to how they're collecting the data now, do you think, because sometimes it can be like a chicken or the egg thing, do we figure out what we need when we collect the data, or do we collect the data and figure out what to do with it later?
That's a good question too. I mean, given that it's so easy to collect data and store data, that I would probably err on the side of collecting too much data, knowing that you can't go back and recreate it if you're not collecting it, and then you can find out over time whether you need to use it, and then if you choose to find out that you don't have to use it, you can maybe stop collecting that data. So I would always collect it because you can't go back and recreate it.
Yeah. Now, from the scope of the whole digital experience, how would you say it's evolving with all the devices and user channels that's coming up? Like, how does someone best approach that?
That's a great question too, because clearly we need to give our users the choice of the device that they want to use and the channel that they choose. And I'm a big believer that you need to take the experience to where they are. So I think we have been stuck in this world that all we're trying to do is get people to come to us. And I think we need to flip that, and we need to go to where they are. Yeah. So if your customer or user hangs out in Facebook or Slack or their Line or Kik or whatever tool that they're on or whatever social channel they're on, you need to initiate the experience there. Yeah. And you can do that with chat. There's a lot of different ways. It doesn't mean that you don't at some point drive them to your web property or to other assets that you have. So that's the first thing. And then I think it's also important to think multi-channel, omni-channel, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It's really the digital channel that the user chooses to use, which may change based on where he or she is. If they're in the morning, they may wake up and their phone might be right there. Yeah. They might be in the office and they're there with their desktop. They might go to lunch and they're in their car. So all those things need to be interacting the right way in a seamless fashion. So it's thinking about the entire user customer journey and propagating it across all the right digital touch points. Yeah,
that's actually funny, because when brought up as you're talking about multi-channel, I thought, figuring out what's the best channel for the certain thing that they're looking for, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not just device either. I think a lot of times we think device equals channel, but think about chat. Chat is relevant within a website. It's relevant within a mobile device. It's relevant within a social channel. Yeah. And the last thing we want organizations to do is to go out there and design different chatbots for each one of those channels. Yeah. They want to be able to do that in a way that it works seamlessly, but they build the chatbot once and then it's available across many different interactive channels.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for you. Thanks so much.
Great.